Hello everyone, welcome to our biology session. This B10 have combined and triple contents, and I have made separately triple content here. The brain, the eye, and some common problems of the eye. You have to go and watch another video for B10.1, 10.2, and 10.3. Let's have a look in details for triple only contents. The brain. Information from sensory receptors all over our body feeds into our brain. In the brain, this information is processed and then impulses are sent out along the motor neuron that coordinate our responses to all different situations. Our brain controls everything, from walking to complex behavior, as well as our thoughts and feelings. Scientists are finding out more about the brain all the time, but it is still in many ways a mystery. Our brain is made of billions of interconnected neurons, and it's protected by our skull, and it is encased in protective membrane. The different regions of our brain carry out different functions. Let's have a look in details. 4 different brain regions: the cerebrum, cerebellum, the medulla, and the hypothalamus. The cerebrum is also called cerebral cortex, which is concerned with consciousness, intelligence, memory, and language. The cerebellum is concerned mainly with coordinating muscular activity and balance. The medulla is concerned with unconsciousness, such as controlling the heartbeat, the movement of the gut, and the breathing. This is autonomous. The hypothalamus is the regulating center for temperature and water balance, and it also controls the body temperature, while the pituitary gland produces many different chemicals or hormones which play a big part in coordinating and controlling body system. Finding out about the brain. What happens where? The hypothalamus, look at the diagram and look at the arrow. This is the hypothalamus, where the regulating center of the temperature and the water balance maintained. Medulla, which controls the heartbeat, the breathing rate, and the movement of the gut. Cerebrum, which controls the consciousness, intelligence, memory, and language. Cerebellum, which controls the balance and also coordinating muscular activity and the coordination of the movement. Look at the diagram and look at the arrow where it indicates. This is a task for you to identify the functions according to different regions of the brain. Let's pause the video and find out the correct answer. Here are the answers to check. Let's have a look. Studying people with brain damage. Over many years, it has been possible to discover by the scientist the role of different areas of the brain when people suffer from brain damage. Scientists can learn which parts of the brain are responsible for doing different jobs. There is a history. In 1948, an explosive accident caused a brain damage to the skull of 25-year-old boy. Amazingly, he survived for 13 years. However, his characteristics changed massively. His polite, hardworking behavior turned into rude, wild, and unreliable. Now, the modern scans show that the accident removed the part of the boy's cerebral cortex or cerebrum, including the area that controlled the social behavior. In electrical stimulation, scientists have stimulated different parts of the brain with a weak electrical current and then asked the patient to describe what they felt. If scientists expose the brain by removing the top of the skull, they can stimulate different areas and see what effect they have. As there are no sensory nerve ending in the brain surgery is normally done on conscious patients. People can experience hunger, anger, fear, or thirst simply because the relevant area of the brain is stimulated. If the motor area is stimulated, the patient make an involuntary movement. If the visual area is stimulated, they may see a flash of color. MRI brain scans. MRI means magnetic resonance imaging. This scan can show the details of the brain structure and the function. In recent years, scientists have been able to develop a much better understanding of how the brain works as a result of new ways of taking images of the brain in living people. For example, if someone develops a tumor in the brain or has a stroke, this will affect the behavior. A magnetic resonance imaging MRI scan will show exactly which area of the brain is affected. This enables scientists to link the loss of certain function, such as a speech or control of movement on one side of the body, with damage to a particular region of the brain. The most recent MRI scanners can take images as someone carries out a simple task. So when patients are asked to perform various tasks, and by looking at the scan, scientists can see which part of the brain can actively work when the task is carried out. It's very difficult to investigate the brain. Neuroscientists have been able to map the regions of the brain to particular functions by doing MRI and by studying patients with brain damage, and also by doing electrical stimulation. The brain is very complex and very delicate. Many of the processes that takes place involve many different neurons in different areas. There is also a range of different chemicals released in the synapses in the brain. It is easily damaged and destroyed. As a result, it is very difficult to investigate brain disorders, and it is also very difficult to treat them. The complexity and the delicacy of the brain makes the investigation and the treating the brain disorders very, very difficult. The treatment of brain injury. Drugs do not always reach the brain through the membranes which surround it. Surgery is difficult because it is not fully understood which area of the brain actually does what. It is easy to cause unintentional damage to the brain. This is a complex process, and this is a complex field of medical rehabilitation, where sometimes moderate to the severe injury can be treated by the combined effort of neurologist, psychiatrist, therapist, the case worker, social worker, and the combination of friends and family. If the brain injury is mild, the treatment often involves the resting the body and the brain together. If symptoms of brain injury persist for a long time, further investigation carried out by the neurologist. As we have discussed before, the story of a boy that he has got hole in his head. This story has changed the study of neuroscience forever after a meter-long rod fired through his skull, which changed his behavior, social interaction massively because of the damage of cerebral cortex in his brain. Answer these 5 questions. It has involved the structure of the brain, the importance of brain, the different areas of functions, and 2 ways how the scientists can find out about the functions of different areas of the brain, and the benefits and the risk of MRI scans. Try yourself, have a go. Our next topic is eye. Here is the specification on the screen. Read it carefully and thoroughly. To start with, how can you alter the amount of light that enters your eye? Let's pause the video and try this question. The answer for the starting question is the iris that regulates the amount of light that enters your eye by adjusting the size of the pupil opening. Sight is an important sense of many animals, including humans. The reason humans can see well is largely due to having complex eyes. Now we need to know in details of iris and pupil. The iris is a ring-shaped membrane inside the eye that surrounds an opening in the center called pupil. The iris contains muscles that allow the pupil to become larger, open up or dilate, and smaller means close up or constrict. Another question for you. Why do we have romantic dinners over candlelight dinner? Which looks more attractive, the eye on the left or the right? Let's pause the video and try to answer this. Link the answer to the dilate pupil and the constrict pupil. Let's have a look at the answer. Because a candlelit dinner happens in a fairly dark environment, your pupils dilate more, means open up more, and look more like the eye on the left. And that's why you look even more gorgeous. Look at these eyes. Depending on the light enters to the eye, it will be dilate more or constrict more. Now you're going to do the structure of the eye. You have some options on the right: retina, optic nerve, sclera, cornea, iris, ciliary muscle, suspensory ligaments. Let's have a go to label them. Here is the structure of the eye, the answer for you to check. You need to relate the structure to their functions. Let's start with sclera. Look at the diagram and find the sclera. Sclera is the white outer layer of the eye. It is relatively tough and strong, so that the eyeball is not easily damaged. The sclera has a transparent area at the front of the eyeball called the cornea. It lets light into the eye. The curved surface of the cornea is also very important for changing the direction of the light rays coming into the eye, making sure that as they enter the eye, they are focused on the retina. So look at the cornea in this diagram and find it out. We have discussed previously the iris and the pupil. Now, if you look at pupil, once through the pupil, the light passes through a clear disc, that is the lens. The lens is held in place by suspensory ligaments and the ciliary muscles. Again, look at the diagram and find that out. It is the lens of the eye that fine-tunes the focus of the light rays, changing the direction to produce a clear image on the retina. The eyeball is filled with a thick transparent jelly that maintains its spherical shape. Now I'm going to discuss about how we can see something. When light hits the retina, the light-sensitive cells are stimulated, like the rod and the cone. They send impulses to the brain along sensory neurons in the optic nerve. Again, look at the optic nerve in the diagram. When the brain receives these messages, brain started to interpret this as a visual image. Therefore, we can see something. Another important thing here is the blind spot. The point where the optic nerve leaves the eye has no retina, so this is called blind spot. Let's have a look in the next slide in details of different parts, descriptions, and the functions. Different parts of eyes: cornea, sclera, iris, lens, ciliary muscle, suspensory ligaments, and retina. Here are the descriptions and the functions. You need to relate their structure to their functions. Let's pause the video and read through carefully. Here, the structure of the eyes and their functions. There are some gaps for you to fill. Let's pause the video and try yourself. Here is a real eye dissection in front of you on the screen. The different parts labeled: lens, sclera, cornea, blind spot, retina, and optic nerve. Have a look. Accommodation: seeing near and far objects. The definition of accommodation is: the accommodation is the process of changing the shape of the lens to focus on near and distant object. The light that reaches our eyes from close objects is spreading out or dispersing very strongly. If we look at the near and the distant object, how does it work? To focus on a distant object, the ciliary muscles relax, so the suspensory ligaments are pulled tight, and the lens is pulled flat and thin. It only refracts the light rays slightly, so they are focused on the retina. What about the near object now? The ciliary muscle contract, so the sensory ligament loosen. The lens is then thicker and more curved. It refracts light rays strongly, so they are focused on the retina. And this is how it works. Let's have a look in details. Accommodation of near object. Now you can take a closer look to the diagram. Ciliary muscles contract the pulling border of choroid toward lens. Suspensory ligaments relax. The lens becomes thicker and rounded, focusing on near objects. So this is the near vision of accommodation. Let's have a look at the distant objects. In the far objects, ciliary muscle relax, border of the choroid moves away from lens. Suspensory ligaments pull against lens. Lens becomes flatter, focusing on distant object. Look at the distant object here. The lens become flatter. Let's have a look at the common defects of the eye, how we can correct the visions of those defects. Short sight. Short sightedness is called myopia. Some people have short sight, means they can look at and see the near object, however they can't see the distant object. Short sight can cause because of two reasons: if the eyeball being elongated so that the distance between the lens and the retina is too great or too big, the lens being too thick or curved, so the light is focused in front of the retina. Therefore, we need to use a concave lens to cure the short sightedness. Short sightedness can be corrected by placing a diversing lens in front of the eye. Diversing lens in front of the eye can make this happen, can make the far point into near point. Let's have a look at the long sight. Long sight means people can see the distant objects clearly, however near objects they can't see within 25 centimeters. This can happen because the eyeball being too short, so the distance between the lens and the retina is too small. A loss of elasticity in the lens means it cannot become fat enough to focus. Now, how this can be resolved? The long sightness is corrected by putting a conversing lens. So look at the diagram and have a look. So if we just recap, short sightness can be resolved by putting a diversing lens, and long sightness can be resolved by using a conversing lens, or you can say a convex lens. Now have a look at the lenses. The left one is conversing lens or convex lens. Right one is diversing lens or concave lens. Pause the video and try to find out which one can fix myopia, means the short sightness, and which one can fix hyperopia, means long sightness. So the myopia, means the short sightness, can be fixed by diversing lens or concave lens, and hyperopia can be fixed by using convex lens or conversing lens. If we recap the myopia and hyperopia, hyperopia is the long sightness, means you will be able to see the distant object clearly. However, the closer object's focus will be out of the retina. Therefore, you won't be able to see any closer objects clearly. In order to resolve this problem, we need to use the lens is called conversing lens or convex lens. You can see the second one, the red color, is the convex lens. Myopia is the short sightness that is a common eye condition. We can clearly see the nearby objects, but the distance object we won't be able to see. In order to resolve this issue, we have to use the lens called concave or diversing lens. That's the fourth one on the screen, the red color, concave or diversing lens. Here are some questions for you. Pause the video and try to answer these. Check your answer from the marks given on the screen. Here is another question for you to complete. Pause the video and try it. Here are the answers for you to check.